You know, you have a very interesting story yourself as a Japanese American. I mean, you didn't even know that you had family members who were impacted by the bombing until you visited, what, 14 years ago? Tell us a little bit about your experience when you visited Hiroshima, and did that compel you to encourage President Obama to make the trip himself?
Well, absolutely. In 2002, I made my very first trip to Japan at the age of 41. I encountered a second cousin, Kikué Takagi, who was a 12, 13-year-old middle school student at the time the bomb dropped. I learned, to my surprise, that she was a survivor. We knew her in the United States as a post-war immigrant. And together, we went to the Peace Museum for the very first time, and she had, most of her classmates perished that day, but she stayed at home because her mother said that she was sick, and she lived on the rather outskirts of Hiroshima. And so as we crossed the Otagawa Bridge on the day that we were to visit the museum for the first time for each of us, she pointed to the river that we were passing and said, they say that you couldn't see the surface of the water because of the many dead bodies that were floating. And I thought to myself at that moment that every world leader who controls a nuclear arsenal should come to Hiroshima to understand and fully fathom the destructiveness of these weapons.
And do you think, to that very point, that there is a lack of understanding, particularly among the strong men of the world and leaders in general? I mean, how does going there, seeing the realities, impact somebody?
Well, for me, it was to meet someone from my own family that we had never had a conversation with her about it, and to not have it be an abstract fact in a book someplace, but to actually connect with somebody that I knew. I think for every leader, a strong man or someone who controls a nuclear arsenal, to actually walk about the city, to fully, in the concrete, understand just how, what ground zero was and just what actually happened in Hiroshima, to walk through the museum, look at the effects, the consequences of what they might, what they could possibly do. I think it ought to be a moral imperative that every leader of a nation that controls a nuclear arsenal come to Hiroshima and follow President Obama's brave example.
Yeah, it's one thing to understand history, but to physically be there and to talk to people and to understand the consequences that still linger today is obviously crucial to experience. But when you talk to your family back in Japan, and as President Obama gets ready to visit Hiroshima and make history, how important is that visit for your family?
Well, I can tell you that when I gave a speech on the floor encouraging the president to go, my father, who is a rather typical Asian father, typical, at least for me, he's not very emotionally demonstrative, but he texted me after he saw my remarks on the floor, and he said, "I'm proud of you, son. You've done something that is very important for our family and is very important for the people of Japan and the Japanese people." I spoke to my cousin Kikué, and she told me that the Japanese people are just so excited that the president has come. It's very meaningful to them.
And again, I was just going to ask you about that. You've said that this could be a healing visit. Expound on that. I mean, what do people in Hiroshima think of America today, Americans today?
Well, of course, the Japanese people and the American people couldn't have a stronger friendship. There's a strong alliance between the two nations, and it's such a powerful example of what can happen to formerly fierce enemies. What it means to the Japanese people in terms of healing is that I think they're hoping that the president is going to focus attention on Hiroshima, focus attention on what happened, but really toward a hopeful future of peace and stability, and the hope and the hard work that needs to be done to make sure that a nuclear weapon is never, ever used again.
You know, and I have to ask you this, you know, especially with the headlines today and the politics in the U.S., you know, we have a presumptive Republican presidential nominee who's called for Japan and South Korea to have nuclear weapons, you know, who's called for a ban on Muslims and have, you know, insulted some ethnic and racial groups in the United States. You know, as someone whose family's experienced the horrors of a nuclear weapon, your family was also, I think your parents and your grandparents spent time in Japanese internment camps, so they were victims, of course, of scapegoating and racism as well. So coming from that background and then hearing this rhetoric today in America, how does that make you feel as an American citizen?
Well, I'm in disbelief that we have to reteach the lesson of what it means to scapegoat people. My own family suffered the loss of property, extensive property, because of what happened, and for no other reason that they looked like the enemy. They weren't the enemy. I have granduncles who served in the American military in the famed 442nd Infantry. It was an insult to hear Donald Trump contemplate that the internment of Japanese Americans was something that we should repeat today, and his anti-Muslim remarks are, in my mind, a departure from our American values. And his nonchalant comments about arming Japan and South Korea with nuclear weapons, potentially fomenting a nuclear arms race in Asia, this really shows me that he's nonchalant, cavalier about his foreign policy. I don't think such a person has any business being taken seriously as a candidate for the presidency of the United States.